I don't know why, this feels really relevant to tell you this, because we're talking about making innovation happen. If I tell you a bit about my family, my wife is a Sri Lankan, my sister-in-law, one of my sister-in-laws is Indian, my other sister-in-law is South African, my father was born in Africa, but my heritage is in India, and I was born in this country, and I live in this country. So apart from making Test cricket a damn nightmare in my household, I feel like this diversity helps me make innovation happen. And hopefully I'll bring a little bit of that help today in this presentation. But just one thought, actually, before I do that, just relevant to Classy's presentation. I'm innovation obsessed. You might have guessed this now by this series, but I just love innovation, even though I find it really, really difficult and really, really frustrating. And so, as you would expect, I'm always reading innovation stuff, I'm always watching innovation stuff, and something that I watched over the weekend by a chap called Patrick Dixon just feels really relevant at the moment, so I thought I'd just tell you about it. He talked about lots of different trends, he talks about lots of different things that are happening in the world at the moment, and he views himself as a futurist. So he was trying to say, what's coming around the corner, what should be our innovation agenda, what should we focus on? And he said that there were all these things happening, some great, some bad, hurricanes all over the world, natural disasters, wars starting, great technologies, but they're all linked, and they're all linked by one word. And I thought, what could he possibly be talking about? And as you would expect with one of these type of presentations, he didn't tell you immediately. He kept on kind of putting a few things on there. And he told this really interesting story that actually reminded me of myself again. I was in India about a year ago, and I remember, if anyone here has been to India, you'll know, especially to Mumbai, you'll know that anywhere you want to go, you've got to at least budget a couple of hours before you if you want to get there, because you will get stuck in traffic. Mumbai roads are horrible. They are just full of different types of vehicles everywhere. So you just got to get used to the fact it's going to take a little bit of time. When I was staying in a hotel that was something like 20 floors high, and I remember sitting in the lobby with some of my colleagues. We were doing a little bit of work, and one of them turned around and said, "Oh, we've got to go now. We've got to get the car. We've got to go. We've got to get to our meeting, otherwise we're going to be late." And so I got ready, got my laptop ready, did all the standard stuff. Went to go to the door and suddenly realised I'd left the most important file on a USB stick in my room. Not a problem, quickly zip up and get it. So walk over to the elevator, press the button, 30 seconds go by, 60 seconds go, twiddling my thumbs, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? I'm in a hurry, I know they were going to start complaining at me, my boss is in town, I'm going to look like a right idiot. So I did the unforgivable thing. I'm sure you've all done it before. I went and pressed that button again. Don't know why I did it, because you all know it does absolutely nothing. You still twiddle your thumbs, you still keep thinking, come on, come on, come on. Now, you'd think that was the only irrational thing I did. Well, actually, I went a step further. I started talking to the elevator. Obviously, making sure there was no one around. I started talking to it, saying, come on, I've got to go, got to go, got to go. Of course, it turned up. Now, the whole point of the story is I'm an emotional individual. We're all emotional people. And if you actually start to think about some of the stories that Classy talked about and some of the things that are happening around the world and the way that we now have all these social media platforms, our response is emotional. We buy things for emotional reasons, and therefore we should all go out and run businesses that provide services and products that people want because that's their emotional response. Now, obviously, it's worth going and Googling Patrick Dixon, watch his video. It is quite inspiring, it's very interesting, it's about an hour. He talks a lot more about the subject than I do, he can give you some more insights, but it just felt quite relevant in terms of what Patsy was talking about today. So, back to my presentation. Introduced this before in a previous presentation. So I work in a department in Unipart called Green Shoots, which I co-created with one of my colleagues. And this was my world for a couple of years. So effectively, I was the guy going around saying, I know everything about innovation, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to create the new iPad, the new iPhone for Unipart. And then after the second day of saying the same thing, and then the third day of saying the same thing, and I realised that the iPad wasn't coming and the iPhone wasn't coming, I thought, I better stop saying this to people because they're going to get a little bit frustrated with me. And that is exactly what happened. But just to remind you of this diagram here, one thing that I discovered is innovation has varying degrees. On the one end, some of the stuff that we are very good at Unipart, continuous improvement, incremental innovation, that is a form of innovation. You're doing what you do today, but better. You're improving it. You're hopefully reducing your cost base. You're improving the quality. You're improving your delivery to your customers. That is an innovation. Just because it looks similar to what you were doing before doesn't mean that that's not an innovation. And it's really important to understand that in your mind, because otherwise you sit there very frustrated and think, oh, I'm not doing anything different. I'm not making anything happen. But the world that we all know most about is on the other end of the spectrum, the radical, more disruptive stuff, like the iPad, coming into the marketplace and changing our behaviours and changing the products that we buy and the way that we actually behave. But it is about doing both of these different things. So I lived in this world and I was trying to do different, as I refer to it, innovation. Trying to find ways of creating products that were going to either do something different for our clients or do something different within the organisation so that we could have a different point of differentiation. Now, in order to do that, we researched high and low, as you'd expect a large organisation to do. Went to academia. I was actually doing an MBA at the time, so it was quite fortunate. Very easy to access the right papers and the right people. And I said, okay, how do other people do this? What's going on out there? And again, this is something I introduced before. Very, very simple. Build process, starting off with searching for new ideas. Then go through an iteration of selection. So can I filter these ideas out? Because if you have too many ideas, you have to work out which ones you're going to do. And then finally, when you've selected the right ideas, go ahead and implement them. Make them happen in your organisation. But as I said before, this really easy to do. It's really easy to come up with ideas. And actually, in these practical innovation sessions, we found that. In the last session that Kate and I did, we found that actually standing around and taking simple problems, it's not that difficult to come up with ideas. And you can come up with the ridiculous to the sublime, And a lot of the time, you sit back and you think to yourself, well, these can't be done, or people don't really want this. But actually, then when you start to really delve below the surface, you might find, and this is where the selection side comes in, you might find that actually these are really good ideas. These are actually possible. To take an example from the last session, we talked about some of the traffic problems, the A34, and I think a couple of groups came up with the idea of using the canals, the river, as a mode of transport. And, I have to admit, I never even considered that, never thought of it. I don't know the practicalities, I don't know if that is a great idea, but it's an idea and it's worth exploring because it could help resolve that problem, and that's what innovation is all about. So, having developed this process, having realised it's quite easy to come up with ideas, there were only two of us in this department. We found very, very quickly it was difficult to manage all of these ideas. And going back to what I was saying earlier about getting into the business, and telling everyone, I'm going to create the next iPad, I'm going to create the next iPhone. Actually, as you engage with the people in your organisation, and I know there are lots of smaller organisations represented in this room, and I think it is still true in a smaller organisation, as you engage with people and ask them to give you ideas or become part of the process of coming up with new ideas, when you have too many, and you only have a small group of individuals looking at those ideas, reviewing those ideas, you cannot respond quick enough to turn around to those individuals and say, actually, we're not going to work on those ones, or we don't have the bandwidth, we don't have the capacity. So people get very frustrated, and that happened a lot at Unipart. People getting very frustrated with the two of us because they're thinking, well, come on, guys, I've given you all these great ideas in the absence of knowing how many other ideas were coming through to us. Why aren't you doing something with it? Why aren't you taking it forward? Because everybody thinks their idea is the best idea on the planet, don't they? I mean, I always do anyway. And you really want people to listen to you and push those ideas forward. But you can't always do it, and sometimes it's not always practical to make ideas happen because of various circumstances. I mean, we talked about, just now we were talking about beta and VHS, is it called beta or beta? Yes, and VHS, it depends on your environment, it depends what is practical at the time, it depends on cost. Lots and lots of constraints for you making innovation happen. So at a given point in time, an idea might not be perfect, you might not be ready for it, but later on down the road, it might become more applicable again. So, in looking at all of this, engaging with our people and having too many ideas going through and not producing enough ideas at the end, we realised that actually innovation is not just about a process, it's a bit more complicated than that. And if anyone has seen this open innovation diagram before, this is one of Henry Chesborough's pieces of work. I think this has been actually adapted by MIT. Yeah, it's awesome. And basically what this is trying to say is there are lots of sources of ideas, and you have, and innovation is almost like a funnel, like a sales funnel, if you like. You know, you can push lots and lots of things in, and it's quite easy to push lots of things in, but you have to have a few holes in your funnel to let some things seep out, because you don't want to do everything. But also, you might want to take those ideas and do something else with it, and you don't know. I mean, what is your agenda? What are you trying to achieve? When we first started Green Shoot, Richard and myself, who were running it, we actually thought we wanted to transform the world. We wanted to transform the company. That was a bigger ambition than necessarily the people in the organisation who were sponsoring us. They thought we were going to go into all the business units and help them create new products, or take their existing product and slightly change it in another way so that it could access another market. It's not what we viewed. We thought we were going to go in, create new markets, buy new products. And in reading some of Chesborough's work and some of the other work that's now happening around innovation, and realising that actually the source of some of your ideas, you've got to sometimes get out there. I think I talked about this before. You've got to sometimes get out there, talk to other people. That's what we're doing here in this room at the moment. We're sharing experiences, we're sharing ideas, we're looking at each other's products, and we're seeing whether there are synergies between the two of them. And that acts as a source of new ideas. We then push it through the funnel, and then you can actually then determine, am I creating a new market with this idea? Is it a new market, or actually can I start working with another company to operate in another firm's space? And it gets a lot more complicated than this. So in starting to understand this model, we became open. We actually probably made the mistake that I think a lot of companies used to make back in the 80s and 90s, of having the sort of, and Green Shoot was almost like an R&D internal thing, where we only talk to internal people. Well, if you only talk to internal people, you're only going to get ideas that are very close to the core and close to what you do as a business today. You're not going to come up with anything that's very disruptive and very different. So all of a sudden, when understanding this model, we started getting out there, we started talking to people, we started to talk to, in some cases, our competition, to understand what are they doing. Talk to our customers. What do they want? Talk to our suppliers. What do they have that can help me do something different? Talk to people who have got absolutely nothing to do with us, in a completely open environment, to see who are their customers, what products do they have, what problems are they solving, and are there any adjacencies to what we do? Alternatively, if they're doing something completely different to us, is there anything that they do where, I think this is a term that I learned from Frank actually, that we could almost combine, I think this is called a recombination, yeah? We combine with some of our products and services to either better serve their customers or better serve our customers, or completely expose a new opportunity for the both of us.